was able to get out this weekend. We have one bill this morning. It is House Bill 2033. Committee, it passed the House 123 to 0, which might explain why all of the proponents are written only. But we do have an opponent, verbal, Nick Reinecker, a private citizen on WebEx. But before we begin, we'll have Jenna give us a review of the bill.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. Sorry about this. I have a nice copy on the printer, which is in the office right now. And this is House Bill 2033, and this bill would change the criteria that are used to refer and admit juveniles to a juvenile crisis intervention center. You may have heard it referred to as a JCIC. And this amends several statutes within the Child in Need of Care Code, as well as the Kansas revised, essentially the Juvenile Offender Code. And one of those sections is in Section 6, it amends KSA 65-536, and that's the statute that creates the Juvenile Crisis Intervention Centers. This current law only allows juveniles who are experiencing a mental health crisis and likely to cause harm to themselves or others to be admitted to these JCICs. And this would be for a short-term observation, treatment, and referral, as well as case planning. This section is amended to expand that definition from the reference just to mental health crisis to behavioral health crisis. And the section later defines behavioral health crisis to mean behavioral and conduct issues that impact the safety or health of a child, members of the child's household, their family, or members of the community, including but not limited to non-threatening, non-life-threatening mental health and substance abuse concerns. This section is also amended to add substance abuse-related issues to the list of services that juveniles can receive services to address. Section 1 amends KSA 382202 in the definition section, which is in the Child in Need of Care Code, to add that same definition of behavioral health crisis. Section 2 amends KSA 382231, and Section 3 amends KSA 382243, which are statutes related to law enforcement taking children into custody and the court directing that temporary custody in the Child in Need of Care Code. And the sections are also amended to change references from mental health crisis to behavioral health crisis. And Section 4 amends KSA 382302, which is the definition section in the Juvenile Justice Code, to add that same definition of behavioral health crisis. And Section 5 amends KSA 382330, and that is the statute relating to law enforcement taking juveniles into custody under the Juvenile Justice Code. Again, to change that reference from mental health crisis to behavioral health crisis. And lastly, Section 7 amends KSA 7552-164, and that is the statute that creates the evidence-based programs account in the State General Fund. Current law allows that money in the fund to be used for juveniles experiencing mental health crisis, and this would change that to behavioral health crisis. So essentially, this bill changes a bunch of references from mental health crisis, from behavioral health crisis, to allow children who are experiencing crisis to go to a juvenile crisis intervention center. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Committee, any questions for Jenna? Senator Stephan.
Thank you. Well, since you're the only one here who can answer any questions, in reading the supplemental note,
Okay.
it talks about a fund.
Yes, the evidence-based.
What can you tell me about that fund?
Can you be more specific?
Well, where's it sitting? What's in it? How much is used? What do we know about this fund?
So currently there is not a juvenile crisis intervention center in the state. There has been an RFP put out in the past. Rules and regulations were developed. I believe the testimony of DCF, they mentioned the rules and regulations being amended as a way to get a juvenile crisis intervention center actually built. I believe there is interest in Johnson County to build a facility, but part of, and I wish that there were proponents here who could talk more about this, but there were just the limited definition of mental health crisis made it difficult, and so that's part of the reason this bill was being created. And we happen to have a member of the Joint Committee on Juvenile Justice and oversight, Senator Baumgardner, who might be able to give more background as to that specific fund.
And our birthday person, Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I will tell you that this has been an issue of great consternation by legislators. So the fund was set up as far as when we stopped housing juveniles in housing centers where they were learning new tricks of the trade. They were put there actually more for behavioral issues than criminal issues. They were learning new tricks of the trade, were truly becoming criminals when they were released. So the funds that were saved were set aside into this account. And ever since it was put into this account, it has sat there, and DCF/KDADS, they did create an RFP process, and it was so convoluted that there is a facility in Johnson County sitting there empty, and it has more than 20 beds. And after more than a year and a half of the RFP process, they just raised their hands and said, we give up on it. And so there was lots of finger pointing that it was actually CMS that was the problem. And so this is an effort to get, there has been sitting there more than $6 million year after year that has not been expended to address the crisis need of youth for such a facility. It's been sitting there vacant, and the hope is that with this language change, it will immediately be able to be utilized, and there is another facility that's intended for the South Central Sedgwick area as well. So it has been there, and bureaucracy has gotten in the way of those funds being utilized, and youth haven't been served as a result, nor have families. The crux of the matter is oftentimes the behavior is there, but the diagnosis isn't there yet. So it might be something such as schizophrenia, a manic behavior is identified, but the diagnosis isn't there yet. So that's why behavior is being added in addition to what was the original language. So that's where we are. The Joint Committee on Corrections and Juvenile Justice for at least the last 4 years has railed on this. And this is the one log jam that we think will break it open for the funds actually to be disseminated. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And if I could add, Madam Chair, I believe that there has been an appropriation of about $2 million made available for the operation of these funds, or for the operation of such facilities in the budget. So about $2 million a year would be available for running a facility like this.
Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just let me make it, so we're not adding anything to the budget? We're not adding, we're just, the facility is there, the money is already there. We just have to change the definition to allow it to open up and flow more correctly, I guess.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this would expand the definition of the eligible population. And the belief is, if the proponents could speak to this, I'd feel a lot more comfortable, but the belief is that that would make it easier to open up the facility and have it start running.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. Thanks, Jenna. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Other questions for Jenna? Thank you, Jenna. And then next we have our only verbal testimony today, Nick Reinecker. Is he available, Dusty? All right. Thank you. Nick, if you can hear us, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee for allowing me to speak today. My name is Nick Reinecker. I'm a private citizen. I'm against this bill because it changes definitions in the middle of the process. I guess these rules and regulations are in the AG's office. And I would have thought that the Attorney General would have spoken on these matters, because I'm concerned that if we change the definition to behavioral health crisis, that it will open up the funnel for people. And I don't want to talk about red flag laws or anything like that, but I'm just concerned that utilizing the DSM-5 as the diagnosis factor, mechanism, or whatever, the book, the psych Bible that they use to diagnose somebody, a juvenile that may have symptoms of oppositional defiance disorder, where his emotional being is not regulated or whatever, and he's smoking a cigarette. Are these the type of people that a law enforcement officer is going to be able to seize, detain, take into custody for the emergency observation and treatment of that individual, because he or she believes that that juvenile suffers from oppositional defiance disorder and a tobacco use disorder? So then they get him in there, he or she in the facility, they get the diagnosis on, and then they prescribe a different drug to combat the substance use disorder. And so just, I won't bother the committee with a whole bunch of commentary, dive into the weeds on different issues or areas, but I just ask that you read this bill and read what it is going to do, and how that could potentially open up issues, constitutional right issues, natural right issues, and everything like that. And then also in section 6, concerning the addition of substance abuse related services, we've dealt with things like this language before in other, well, just to be specific, COVID related services, to where you can just pretty much pin it on anything and it works. And right now, we have these workforce issues. So if we open the funnel and we have all these people come in, who's gonna take care of them? There are many other issues that I have here, but because I do struggle with putting them into without reading it just as a transcript, I want to avoid rabbit trails. But there are concerns with this bill and the way that the language is used, and I'll just stop there, and I won't go into any other commentary. You know what I come up there and talk about all the time. So I thank you for the work that you do. Please make whatever you do constitutional, family first. I did want to say one other thing. When you put these people, a lot of these people are committing crimes. They're disorderly conduct, aggravated assault, and we want to blame them on mental health issues instead of technically calling them crime. And so they go to these facilities, and then they might commit a crime in the facility, and then they go to jail, and then we diagnose them and put them on medications or pharmaceuticals, natural or synthetic drugs, and then taxpayers have to pay for that money while they're sitting in jail waiting for whatever Larned or this or that or this or that or whatever. So from the top of what you classify as crime to how you deal with the effects of mental illness, or however we're defining sin and everything like that. I'll stop. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I am an opponent to this bill. I hope the Attorney General would speak on it a little bit. Thank you, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Nick, committee? Nick, thank you so much for your testimony today. Committee, this concludes the hearing on House Bill 2033, and as such finishes our work today. Committee, we are adjourned.